Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param. Om. Okay, the verse is chapter 2, verse mantra 4. Brahman is known when it's realized in every state. In every state of mind, for by such knowledge one attains immortality. By Atman, one obtains strength. By knowledge, immortality. So I remember that we taught this subject, and I was hoping that Swamiji was going to elaborate on what he means here, what the verse means, by these two names here, by knowledge and by Atman, by knowledge and by Atman. Atman one obtains strength. By knowledge, one obtains immortality. Did you guys figure it out? What it's pointing to, the distinction?
I looked at Swami Dayananda's translation of the verse, and it reads, Brahman is known through every cognition. One indeed gains immortality from that cognition. One gains the capacity to know by oneself. Thereafter, one gains immortality by knowledge. And the capacity to know by oneself, I think, refers to preparation, adhikaritvam.
Self-effort, huh?
Yeah, I think that's how Dayananda read that verse.
Yeah, by oneself, one obtains strength, self-effort. And then knowledge is going to transfer one sense of identity to the immortal consciousness. Yeah. Lynn, can you do me a favor? Can you post that on our group later on? Okay.
You bet.
Thank you. This is the most profound verse in the entire canon. The procedure of gaining Brahmayana is present here, not given in any of the previous mantras. So now he's going to begin elaborating on how to gain this knowledge. So he's presenting a very important pointer, which is it's a realization of that which is available at all times, all states, even in deep sleep. So it's all about recognizing that. And Swamiji says that he's going to begin presenting the method by gaining this hard and fast self-knowledge. The essence of this method will be presented in a few sentences, then I will elaborate. Upanishad says Brahma has to be understood or realized as the non-variable consciousness. Okay, I think we have seen this passage. So we know that there is something which is unchanging, that is witnessing all sorts of change. So the instrument by which we see the changing world change as well, unfortunately, So the body-mind changes, the world changes. So you have two principles that are changing. And if you want to establish your identity on the instrument of knowledge, which is changing, so you're going to see something as good now, but tomorrow your instrument may be somehow tuned in a different way, and then you may see that as bad. So the instrument is changing. The world is changing. We need to realize something that is unchanging. So this pramana is given by the scriptures, pointing to limitless non-dual consciousness as the only unchanging principle which allows us the knowledge of the changing world and the changing body-mind through which we we see the world, we experience the world, we know the world. So the whole thing here of this sadhana is to recognize that there is something that does not change. And then, of course, we need to, reject the ego, the mind, the intellect, because as we know, they are changing. They are changing. And then at the same time, as we have seen, this Brahman is not an object of knowledge. So it does not have any attribute, cannot be known as an object of knowledge, much less as an object of experience. It needs to be realized as the very, very source, the true nature of the mind, body-mind sense complex, which includes the very subtle intellect. Is the non-variable conscious, non-dual conscious, which shines in the mind, because of which alone all experience and all forms of knowledge are possible. I will repeat, Brahman has to be understood as the non-changing, non-variable consciousness shining in the mind. Consciousness is reflecting the mind. Mind is a reflection of consciousness. So the mind is going to be changing. Why? Because the mind is something other than the reflecting medium. The mind changed because the reflecting medium changed. The configuration of the gunas operating the subtle body is the reflecting medium. The reflecting medium is changed, therefore the reflection is changing as well. So we need to do this viveka, this inquiry, understanding that the subtle body changed its configuration, therefore the mind, which is the reflection, is changing as well, which is also can be referred to as human consciousness is changing. The reflecting medium is changing. So we need to understand these teachings and know that there is a principle which does not change. And somehow nobody knows how we need to claim that to be our very true nature. That's the only way we can relax in this changing world. We need to find a way to recognize and claim this non-changing principle as our true self, our true identity / nature. And Vedanta says that there is a pramana to that, and this pramana is an indirect means of knowledge that is going to reveal the self indirectly by rejecting anything so far you have identified as yourself. We go by net until it becomes self-evident that Brahman is that which is always realized because it shines at all times as the subject, never as an object, free from any attributes. If it would have attributes, it would be changing because the attributes are always moving and changing. And anything that changes is in duality and it's subject to time. Okay. So once we understood that, and then the next step is what? Claiming. I understood the non-variable principle consciousness, non-changing consciousness. And then I know that it is shining in the mind at all times, appearing as a changing mind. So I understood that that is Brahman, that is Brahman. But that's not enough to give us direct self-knowledge. That is indirect self-knowledge, because I say that is Brahman, that is something other than myself. One has to understand, I am myself, this Brahman. This aham is, the true nature of this aham is limitless consciousness. My true nature is the non-variable consciousness. This non-variable consciousness is myself. In this manner, and in this manner only, Brahman has to be known as myself. But don't ask me to explain what is this Brahman, because I can only say what it is not. Shankaracharya writes a brilliant commentary on this mantra, the gist of his Bhashyam. I will share some of it. First, we have to know that every experience and every knowledge that we have through the waking hours involve two factors. We have seen this part. We have we have the thought and the object. Every time we see an object, there is a thought, a relevant thought in respect to that object. So the mind, which is the integrator of the five senses, the channels through which we contact the world of objects, it connects with each of its respective objects. The mind is going to integrate that into a experience/knowledge. So Swami elaborated a lot about that, and I brought in last class some other elements of it, which is like even though we know things through the sense and the mind, they are not necessarily good knowledge as well. But it brings about always a relevant thought. A relevant thought comes. And then there are two factors operating. The object and the thought associated to that contact. Every time we contact an object in media, there is a relevant thought dominating our awareness. Swami says that you can see things but not notice things, because if the mind, one's awareness is not really bringing to focus a certain thing, you are just having, a totally zoom out, vision, and then you see, things, but you don't see the specifics of that scene. You need to focus and register a certain thing so that thought appears. It reminds me again the old meditation on stay with open eyes, and you just you bring your attention to, they call nowadays the mindful meditation, to your presence, your conscious existence. I am, and I know that I am. Sagadatta used to present, you just hold on to your thought, feeling, aham, I am, I exist, not adding anything to it. So if we stay in that way, we don't contract to get in contact with anything. We just stay, focusing on the subject principle as a reflection that occurs in the sattvic mind. So, but in life, we need to somehow contact the objects and pay attention. Otherwise, we make a lot of mistakes and get in trouble more often than not. So every contact brings about a thought, the object and the thought in respect to that object. It's called antakarana vritti. It's a thought that occurs in relation to that contact with that object. It's a relevant thought, relevant to what? To the object. If there is a rope and I have a rope thought, and then I'm good to go. If there is a rope, but I see a snake, then I'm in trouble because I'm gonna be all disturbed. But if it is a snake and I see a rope, and then I'm in really big trouble. That's a bigger mistake. So relevant thoughts do not mean that you are seeing things correct. That was my point. I did a side elaboration last time, because it does not mean that you are seeing things for what it is, but it's the thought in respect to an object that is relevant in your mind. Experience a continuous change, knowledge of objects are continuously changing, happening. So it's very complex. Variable thoughts generate variable experience, variable knowledge, and knowledge later on has to be scrutinized to so that we know if it's a good knowledge, so-so knowledge, or mistaken knowledge. This happens throughout the waking hours. Vedanta says the thought alone is not enough for gaining knowledge. Thought is part of the mind. Thought is inert, as we know. Mind is a byproduct of the Panchabhutas. We need the unchanging consciousness, which allows knowledge to take place. So this is knowing something, supposedly that you are having a proper knowledge. The relevant thought is faithful to the object, okay? So you have knowledge. Knowledge represents the chit aspect of Brahman, and the thought represent the inert aspect, the sat aspect of Brahman. Did you get it clear? So you have a thought is inert, the knowledge is the chit aspect of Brahman, and knowingness, knowledge. Thought itself is incapable of having experience or knowledge. Therefore, in addition to thought, we require consciousness, the non-variable principle, because of which thought becomes knowledge. Breach becomes Brichyanam. Breach becomes Pratyaya. Breach becomes Anubhava. Okay. And that factor is what? Is consciousness principle, which pervades the entire body, mind, sense complex. Therefore, thought and consciousness put together gives the anam. So we have the objects. We bring our attention to the object, and then a relevant thought comes up, and then that relevant thought, blessed by consciousness, becomes knowledge, becomes jnana. We are talking about knowledge in respect to things out there. The mechanism by which we contact. So we have consciousness, we have thought, we have consciousness, an object, a relevant thought, and consciousness behind all of that. Thought plus consciousness, this mixture alone allows knowledge to take place. And once I know that every knowledge and experience is a mixture of thought and consciousness, the question comes, is the consciousness also variable or not? We have established this knowledge, this understanding. Consciousness is the non-variable principle. Otherwise, we will not understand it. Brahmayana is that knowledge of something which never changes. I remember James giving an example of someone he met in India, in Tiruvannamalai, that got in contact with him and then heard the teachings of the changeless nature of consciousness, and got some instructions from James that just keep your mind on the changing nature of this meteor world and hold on to the unchanging consciousness, reject everything that changed. And then according to him, that gave her such an insight that later on she came. So I have been doing that, and now I understood it. I just need to use one tool, one Vedantic tool, which is reject anything that change. It's simple. If someone is highly qualified, Papaji used to tell us without elaborating, don't hold on to anything that changes, or it's going to kill you in the end, Okay. Every knowledge consists of a thought plus changeless, a changing thought and implies a unchanging consciousness, changeless consciousness. Bodha means what? Anubhava equal bodha. Pratibodha. Can you translate that, Lynn, please?
I think it's knowledge of every changing thought. I don't see where we are in the text. Sorry.
Okay. Page 123, the very bottom,
Oh, okay.
the last few lines.
Oh, changing consciousness equals experience. And then thought and all thoughts. That's what I read it for. Maybe not right, but that's how I read it.
In Sanskrit, bodha means every cognition, every knowledge, every experience, which is a mixture of the changing thought and the changeless consciousness. So bodha is buddhi, is cognition, every knowledge, every experience, which is a mixture. Yeah. So what is the distinction between experience and knowledge? I often like to put experience/knowledge, because you cannot know things without contacting something, and contacting brings about an experience. So experience brings about cognition of a certain object, and knowledge, which is a function of the relevant thought and connotations we take for that object. That is more or less the process. And that is only possible due to changeless consciousness principle. Since the thought and consciousness are intimately mixed together, many people mistake that consciousness as integral part of the mind, integral part of thought. Why? Because we experience them at the same time. They are not independent in the sense that consciousness is independent, but the thoughts depend on consciousness. But people make a mistake of seeing things upside down. They think that consciousness depends on the thoughts and in the mind. Vedanta wants to correct that misunderstanding. Consciousness is in every thought, but it's not part, product, or property of any thought. But somehow it's there, backing up the thoughts, allowing the thought to be superimposed upon itself as consciousness. So, and then Swami brought the example of the moonlight and moon. We perceive them together, but we cannot really separate them. But cognitively, knowledge, by understanding, we know that this light of the moonlight does not belong to the moon, but belongs to the sun. And the sun reflects on the moon, but the sun is free and independent from that reflecting medium. The sun is free and independent from that reflecting medium. The reflecting medium is there, is going to produce the moonlight. The moonlight is dependent on what? The reflecting medium, and dependent on the sunlight. So reflect consciousness, which allows us knowledge, depends on the reflecting medium and depends on consciousness to experience itself as a reflection, but it does not depend on the reflecting medium once it knows for sure that my true nature is free, limitless, original consciousness. You follow the distinction? Self-knowledge does not allow to any dependence. One should never depend on the reflecting medium. You have to depend on something which is your intrinsic nature, which is original consciousness, and then you are independent because it's your nature. And that takes away that fear that people have. They get to self-knowledge, but they feel, but if I lose this reflecting medium, if I lose this body-mind, no? So where does my self-knowledge go? No? So I'm no longer experiencing my moksha. No? So this is very common. So it's like to say that the ocean now, the river became the ocean, and the river now, as embracing an am, this merge with the ocean, is feel like I'm whole, full, and complete. I'm the ocean, which is an incredible, beautiful symbol of Purna. No? And then why the ocean would feel like, oh my God, but now I lost my independent identity, my separate identity as the river. Oh, you are embracing your higher nature as consciousness, but then, but the ego is not there, the mind is not there, the thought is not there. But this has served a certain purpose, which was to bring you to the identification with your higher nature, which is not an experiencing entity. And people want to experience moksha as an experiencing entity. They want to hold on to the experiencing of Brahma. And the scriptures say Brahma cannot be known by any experience. It's not an object of experience. So you don't need to experience Brahman. Brahman is your true nature, meaning to say existence, meaning to say non-experiencing consciousness. You are the subject. So the moonlight may, for a moment, the moon may feel like this light belongs to me, but in due time, it grows, matures to understand that it belongs to original sun, light. And then what happens with the reflected medium? It remains as before because it's inert, but the reflection of the sunlight now has a different feel of itself. It feels like, okay, now I understood. I do not really depend on this reflecting medium, mean to say the inert moon. I depend on the original sunlight. Oh, but it's so far away and so on. And I'm just, you have to understand that the nature of the reflecting light is identical to the original light. It's light rays. Light rays. This is my nature. Light rays. Light of consciousness. Shining as the changing mind. I don't care for my changing nature because I understood that everything that happens here in the denser and the subtler levels is a flux of continuous change. I'm happy with my unchanging nature, which is not an experience of entity, is not an experience entity. Therefore, it's not either an object that I can experience and own objectively, but is the subject, my true nature. They appear together, but they are not independent, meaning to say consciousness is not dependent on the reflection that occurs producing knowledge. The knowledge is dependent on consciousness. Thoughts and consciousness appear together. There is no dependence from the side of consciousness, although from the side of thought, it depends, yes, indeed, on consciousness. One is unchanging consciousness, the other is changing thoughts, which allows us knowledge. For self-knowledge or Brahmayana to take place, the first step is turning the attention from the changing thoughts to the non-changing consciousness. And then he presents a teaching here that James used to use it a lot. They say, so you're conscious of my hand, now you are conscious of this spin drive. So every one of these objects, are being present to consciousness. Yeah. So, but consciousness, the same consciousness that experienced my empty hand and my hand with this or that, is the same. Whatsoever is seen in consciousness is changing. The first object comes, and then the second comes, the first go away. But that consciousness unchanging is never not present. Never not present. Only what I'm conscious of is changing. Therefore, turn the attention towards the consciousness principle, the unchanging consciousness. Then the next step is what? To turn the attention towards the consciousness principle, I should not look for the consciousness as an object of experience. Once I have done this discrimination between consciousness and thoughts, I have to understand that every thought is an object. How so? Why? Because I can objectify it. We can see the thoughts appear. It's very subtle consciousness and the cognition and thoughts and even knowledge that appear there. It's very subtle. That's why the mind has to be made very subtle as well. I am the consciousness principle mingling with everything, because I am the substratum, I am the additional. Every thought that rises and falls, I'm supporting, I'm blessing it. Not only I'm blessing everything, I'm aware of the thought as well. Therefore, thought is an object. I am the non-variable consciousness. I am the subject conscious principle. Do you understand the steps? Yes, we understand, Swamiji. Very well done. Two are there you should understand. One is changing, the other is unchanging. Okay. The non-change consciousness is not an object. Thoughts are object, but consciousness is aham, who am aware of the body-mind thought world. I, in my true nature. Brilliant line, everything changed, word changed, body changed. Excuse me. Mind is violently changing. Thoughts are changing. Everything is changing. Change, 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 change. That brings us to the decay and death of the physical body, which is nothing but change. The only reality in this material world is change. The only thing for sure is that which is always changing. Changing things, there is changeless witness consciousness principle, because of which I say, I was a young body, now I am a youth, now I am a middle-aged person and old, and now the body is very weak and sick. I am this non-variable consciousness. We have to visualize this and try to understand the power of this self-knowledge, because you are so established within in your true identity, nature, as the witnessing consciousness, unchanging, non-variable consciousness. And only that will allow the jiva to leave this physical body, gracefully, I'd say. I am witnessing now the last peak on this meteor reality, the last breath is leaving, everything is changing. Now the body mind is weak and sick and dying, and I'm going to have a last look. And you know who said that, Lynn? Nisargadatta Maharaj, when he was about to die, he gave us a few words, and he told Balsekar, who was at the time his translator, and say, come, 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 time has come. So it's going to be a question of a few hours. Come to say goodbye. I will have my last look into this world. Just imagine, when I read that, I was like, woo, just imagine, last look, Invite your friends, come, I'm going to say goodbye. I have the impression that only in Hollywood, some samsaris die conscious up to the last breath. Have you seen Hollywood, the movies? Every samsari dies, and they are there conscious, and then they close their eyes, they die, and then people start grieving and so on. I think only in the movies that happens, because you need to be so mature to remain conscious. My take is that somehow Ishvara has to put the individual unconscious to remove the subtle body from the physical body, because the mind is going to, to hold on, fight.
And there are many studies that show that the mind's activity does not cease when necessarily someone is right after they are declared dead, that there's still mental activity, and who knows, that could be it.
Yeah, and they can pick it up in the brain. Yeah. I think one needs to be a yani to stay conscious up to the last moment. Everybody's so terrified with this notion of death. I have seen a few cases that people, they went crazy. They start, seeing things and thinking things, and, the body mind went crazy somehow. Okay. All of this body, mind, sense complex and the entire three worlds are only the changing OMACT. What is the relationship between I, the observe, the witness consciousness, and the OMACT? What is the relationship, consciousness and matter? What is the relationship? Here alone, most of philosophers commit blunder. Shankar philosophy says that both of them are independent. We've seen this last class, very beautiful. Yeah, different philosophies saying that duality is reality. The world is a changing phenomenon. It's beginningless, and so far Vedanta agrees it's beginningless, but it's real to them. As if parallel realities, both means the non-changing consciousness and the changing world, both are real. Purusha and Prakriti, both are real, independent, eternal, parallel realities, meaning to say duality, plurality is reality, duality is reality. Vedanta says there is only one reality, and that is conscious existence. Modern science also says that there are two principles, matter and consciousness, and they relate. In Sankhya philosophy, they say that they are not related, they are parallel entities. Modern science says that they relate. Oh, great. Oh, but unfortunately, they see it upside down. They think that matter is the cause and consciousness is the effect. They reverse the relationship between matter and consciousness, and rather than seeing matter as a byproduct of consciousness under the power of Maya, Ishvara, they see that matter is the principle that produces consciousness, because they take consciousness to be the mind. They take the mind to be consciousness. They have no means to do this viveka, discrimination between consciousness and the mind. There's no way. It's too subtle. We need a special process, Vedantic process that begins with karma, dharma, upasana to make the mind very subtle so that we can understand this difference, this reversion, this reverse thing, we can reverse the reverse, as James used to say. Now comes Vedanta, dismissing both of these philosophies, science and Shankya's philosophy. Consciousness and matter are not two parallel independent reality. They have a cause-effect relationship, and what is the cause and what's the effect is the opposite of what science has conceived. Consciousness is the causeless cause of the cosmos. It does cause a cosmos without doing anything and without changing itself to become the cosmos, because the cosmos is just an appearance superimposition upon consciousness, the true cause of everything. But which cause is this one that causes things without doing anything? And that takes us to the Mandukya Karika, in which indeed we experience a very intelligent design cosmos, universe, following incredible, precise laws and principles, but they belong to something which is not real, not unreal, but apparently real. And this we call mithya in Vedanta, in our philosophy. Mithya is that similar to all names and colors and forms of all objects of gold, because as we know, even ornaments of gold, sometimes they are more yellow, sometimes they have even white gold, and so on. Consciousness is the ultimate karanam. And if I am Brahman is what needs to be claimed, and then the question is, what type of Brahman? In Taittiriya, we have a hint that says that from I, the consciousness which is Brahman, the self, the Atma, the I is Brahman alone. The entire world appears, emerges within me. Nothing escapes. Everything exists within the scope of consciousness. I, the consciousness which is Satchitananda Brahman, the alone and only the entire world appears. Again, in another Upanishad, Kaivalaya, it said that just as the dream world rises in me and subsides in me, resolves in me, This awakened world also is born out of me, rests in me, and resolves in me as consciousness. Therefore, aham karanam Brahman and Jagata is Karyam. I am Brahman, the causeless cause of the universe. This world is an effect. It's superimposed upon myself due to a certain power. We call it Maya. And the parallels are brilliant, bringing again and again the dream state and the dream world and the dreaming entity, the Taijaza. And we know that the entire dream world has its cause in the mind of the waker that changes its states as a dreamer. And then there we go. We have a different world, the dream world before our eyes. It does not have an independent existence, the dream world, because it is just happening within the scope of my mind. I don't know how to do that, but thanks God, I know nothing. Shwara, through Maya, Shakti knows how to do all of that. A product cannot exist separate from its cause, like the example, ornaments cannot. You cannot remove the gold and retain the ornaments of gold. The same way, consciousness is their blessing as the substratum of the entire cosmos, universe. Brahman, Yanam, exists only in one manner. Brahman is consciousness. God is consciousness. God is the creator, is the intermediary understanding. The true God is consciousness. In a more philosophical way, is conscious existence, the only reality. Consciousness is I, and what I am, and that I am the cause of the entire creation. Aham Satya Jagan Mitya. I am consciousness, I am Satya. The entire world is apparent superimposition upon myself. And this non-variable consciousness can be recognized at all times, in all states, as it says in this verse. It's always there, regardless of the states. Do not say that, oh, I need to go into Nirvikalpa Samadhi to recognize consciousness. Oh, I have to have a sattvic mind to recognize consciousness. Maybe you need to have a little bit more sattva guna in your body mind, operate in your body mind, so that you can understand these teachings and hold, retain the teachings and assimilate the teachings. But once you have cultivated and gained more sattva guna, and then once you get this knowledge, and this knowledge is properly established, and then you're good to go. The mind will change, the states of the mind are going to stand. Sometimes you're going to feel, ooh, what a nice samadhi state. Sometimes you're going to say, ooh, what a annoying, disturbed state. But you know that you are always there shining. If your reflecting medium is more tamasic, you're going to reflect as tamasic kind of state of mind, or rajasic kind of state of mind. If it's sattvic, you're going to be more clear and experience more ananda and so on, but you are beyond all sorts of experience. But it remains a certain preference in the mind of the yoni. I don't enjoy to have a disturbed mind experience, irritation or anything. Therefore, the yoni wants to understand this meteor world, live in harmony with the laws and principles structuring the Dharma field, living a Dharmic, sattvic lifestyle. The knowledge is good. is good at all states, but yet everybody prefers peace than disturbance, and agony. This consciousness is always available, never not present. Every experience is possible because of this consciousness, and I am this Satchitananda Brahman. Generally, I give this example. Let's see the example of Swamiji here. During the daytime, suppose you are moving on the road, you experience so many shops, small shops and so on, a lot of vehicles and all these experience, visual perceptions are possible because of the sunlight. And we have one pramana, the means of knowledge of physical objects, which is sunlight. Without the sunlight falling on the object, you cannot have a visual perception. So your eyesight is gone because there is no sunlight, and the power outraged in India, they are more often than not. And then there is no perception, there is no knowledge of anything, there is no relevant thought. To perceive a car, you have to see in the direction of the car. To perceive a shop, you have to look to the side. To experience the sunlight, which direction you should look. Beautiful, huh? The sunlight is the pramana illumining the object, but it's because it's all pervasive. You don't need to look anywhere. Therefore, it's available at all states of mind. Consciousness is always shining, regardless of the states, regardless of the reflection it causes in the mind, in the subtle body. Like the sunlight is always there, illuminating the objects, and I don't need to look for the light because the light is all pervasive. So I have the experience of light, and I have experience of a hand. I have experience of a hand with a cup, but the bottom line here, the main point here, is like I miss the light because my light is a little subtler, and we take it for granted. I miss the consciousness without which I cannot live, I cannot see the world, and I cannot experience my mind and my thoughts. I discount, I take for granted this consciousness because it's too subtle. Attention usually goes to that which is denser and grosser. The subtler a principle is, because consciousness is not an object. The subtler the principle, you need more and more a subtle mind to capture that principle. All experience of all objects when I drive includes the experience of consciousness of light. Likewise, how we experience consciousness, or we are not experiencing consciousness. Is consciousness an object of experience, or is consciousness not an object of experience? Are we experience consciousness or not, Mark? No?
Well, we are experiencing consciousness, but not as an object of consciousness. But without the consciousness, we wouldn't be experiencing the objects. So we are experiencing it directly without knowing it.
Yeah. You will experience consciousness at all times as the knower, the true nature here, the knower, okay, the true nature of the experience, that which allows thoughts, relevant thoughts and knowledge and experience to take place is always present, the same way light is always present, so that experience takes place. So that's why I love that construction says, like, I am the light of consciousness, illuminating and revealing all my experiences. So it's present. There was a time that I used to emphasize more these experiential element in self-recognition, self-knowledge, because when we experience something such as these mouths, you experience several things, including the light that we discount so easily, but we experience our conscious mind as well. It's a little subtler, but it's there. So consciousness, there is a certain elemental experiential element to it, because you will perceive that you are always experiencing this light of consciousness by which you can experience the meter objects. It's always there. Maybe because when this recognition took place to me, it was a very subtle epiphany in which I see myself as the light of consciousness. You understand? But it remains to me that, I cannot see anything without seeing consciousness shine upon all these objects. Understand? Therefore, meditate on this point, on this statement. Every visual perception includes the experience of consciousness, includes the experience of light. You don't need to make any separate effort to see light because it's so pervasive. Every human experience includes the experience of consciousness, not as an object, but is the nature of the seer, the knower, the experiencer, the light illumining and revealing. No separate effort is required to experience the light and the light of consciousness. In every visual perception, light experience is included, but discounted. Similarly, in every knowledge, in every experience, what is their consciousness is included. Are you experience consciousness, yes or no? And for acknowledging this presence of consciousness, you do not require a special state of mind. You don't require a special of a star, because it's there, illumining and revealing the world independently of the states of the mind. You don't require any mystic experience. So who says that? Swamiji sometimes said, I'm not saying that. I'm not cooking up these teachings. It's the Upanishads. Kena says, I don't say. Okay? So leave me out of this. Well, it was very nice to revise. Most of it we saw today was already seen before now. But it was very nice.
I think a person could use this verse for manana forever and get the full story. I think it's a beautiful verse.
It's very, very beautiful. And Swami has been told us this is one of the most profound verses of this Upanishad. Okay, now I know where we have stopped. I'm going to save it in here so that I don't miss it next time. We meet again tomorrow, Lynn. Same time. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Namaste.
Thank you, Orlando.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. We
Thank
see us
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Wonderful satsang.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks very much. Beautiful satsang.
Enjoy it as well. Bye-bye.
Okay, see you.